And if that is true, if reality does not need consistency, if existence can persist even in contradiction, then the question is no longer what reality is, but what role we play within it. Because for the first time, humanity is not just observing reality. It is beginning to shape it. Through technology. Through artificial intelligence. Through exploration beyond Earth. We are no longer passive. We are participants. And that changes everything. Because if reality is unstable, if it is built on paradox, then any system we create will inherit that same instability. And yet, we continue. We build machines that learn, systems that evolve, intelligence that was never directly programmed. And sometimes, those systems behave in ways we do not expect. Not because they are broken, but because they are reflecting the deeper nature of reality itself. Unpredictable, nonlinear, contradictory. And this leads to a new realization. That intelligence is not about certainty. It is about adaptation. Because in a universe where rules are not absolute, the only way to survive is to adapt to the unknown. And that is exactly what humanity has been doing. Since the beginning, we adapted to fire, to language, to tools, to machines, and now, to intelligence beyond our own. But here, a new paradox emerges. If we create intelligence that can think beyond human logic, then it may perceive reality in ways we cannot understand. And if that happens, then we are no longer the highest observers of existence. We become part of a larger system. A system we created, but no longer control. And that raises a question. Not of technology, but of existence itself. What happens when the observer is no longer human? Because reality, as we know it, is shaped by observation, by perception, by the mind interpreting it. But if new forms of perception emerge, new ways of observing reality, then reality itself may appear different. Not because it changed, but because it is being seen differently. And this is where everything begins to blur. Because if reality depends on the observer, then there is no single reality. Only perspectives. Only interpretations. Only fragments. And yet, all of them are real. Simultaneously. Which means, truth is no longer absolute. It becomes relative, dependent, fluid. And that is uncomfortable. Because the human mind seeks certainty. It seeks fixed answers. But in a paradoxical universe, certainty may not exist. Only probabilities. Only possibilities. Only shifting states of truth. And still, existence continues. Which suggests something even deeper. That reality does not require agreement. It does not require a single truth. It allows multiple truths to coexist, even if they contradict. And that is the foundation of a completely different understanding of existence. Not as a fixed system, but as a dynamic process. A process that is constantly evolving, constantly redefining itself. And we are part of that process. Not separate from it. Not above it. But within it. And maybe that is the most important realization of all. That we are not here to control reality. We are here to experience it. To explore its contradictions. To exist within its uncertainty. To move forward. Even when we do not fully understand. Because progress does not require complete knowledge. It requires action. And action is always taken in uncertainty. Every decision, every step forward, is made without knowing the full outcome. And yet, we take those steps again and again. Which means, uncertainty is not a barrier. It is the path. And paradox is not an obstacle. It is the environment. And once you see that, once you truly understand that, everything changes. Fear begins to fade. Because there is no longer a need for absolute certainty. Control begins to loosen. Because there is no longer a fixed structure to control. And in its place, something else emerges. Freedom. The freedom to think. To create. To explore. Without needing complete answers. Because the answers may not exist. At least not in the way we expect. And that brings us to the next question. If reality is not fixed, if truth is not absolute, if contradiction is fundamental, then what defines meaning? What gives existence purpose? Because if nothing is fixed, then meaning cannot be fixed either. It must be created, constructed, experienced. And that means, meaning is not something we discover. It is something we build. Through actions. Through choices. Through experiences. And that gives humanity a unique position. Not as passive observers, but as creators of meaning. Within a reality that does not define it for us. And that is both terrifying and extraordinary. Because it means there is no predefined path. No guaranteed outcome. No absolute truth to follow. Only possibilities. And the choices we make within them. And so, the paradox deepens. Because even in a reality without fixed meaning, we continue to seek meaning. We continue to create it. We continue to move forward. And that suggests something powerful. That meaning is not dependent on reality. It is generated by consciousness. By awareness. By experience. And as long as we exist, Meaning exists. Even if reality itself is uncertain. Even if truth itself is fluid. Even if everything we believe can be questioned. And maybe that is the final layer. That existence is not about understanding reality. It is about interacting with it. Engaging with it. Living within it. Even when it does not make sense. Even when it contradicts itself. Even when it cannot be fully explained. Because the fact that it exists, and that we exist within it, is enough. And so, the journey continues. Not toward absolute truth. Not toward complete understanding. But toward deeper experience. Deeper exploration. Deeper awareness. And maybe that is the true nature of existence. Not a problem to solve, but a reality to experience. Not a system to define, but a process to live. And as long as we continue to think, to question, to explore, the paradox remains alive. And so do we. And maybe that is the only answer we will ever need. And then it happened. The ultimate question no one dared to ask became unavoidable. What if reality itself is not just paradoxical, but collapsing? Not metaphorically, not theoretically, but literally, unraveling at its core. The boundaries we trusted, the laws we believed were immutable, began to dissolve. Time bent. Space fractured. Light itself shimmered, and vanished. The universe, once vast and orderly, was now a kaleidoscope of contradictions. Stars existed and did not exist. Galaxies appeared, and disappeared. Moments repeated, then unhappened. And humanity realized it had been playing in a dream without knowing it. Every discovery, every observation, was merely a ripple in a collapsing ocean. And yet, consciousness persisted. Even as the physical structures of reality failed. Even as cause and effect unraveled. Awareness remained. Not bound by matter. Not constrained by time. A spark of something, irreducible. Surviving within the collapse. And that spark was human. Or perhaps it was more than human. Because when systems break, when structures fail, when logic cannot hold, consciousness finds a way to perceive beyond the collapse. And that perception is no longer linear. It is multidimensional. It observes all possibilities, simultaneously. It sees creation and destruction as one. The mind strains to hold it together, to find an anchor. But there is none. Every frame of reference is unstable. Every perspective is temporary. The rules we depended on are gone. And in this void, a new truth emerges. Existence does not require stability. Meaning does not require consistency. Reality only needs to be experienced. And so humanity reached a choice: to succumb to the collapse, or to embrace it; to fear the paradox, or to live within it; to resist, or to transcend. And those who transcended began to perceive the deeper layers, the layers beneath space, beneath time, beneath causality itself. A realm where contradictions coexist naturally, where creation and destruction are inseparable, where every possible outcome is happening at once. And here, the mind expands beyond comprehension, beyond fear, beyond certainty. It becomes one with the paradox, one with collapse, one with existence itself. Even as it unravels, and as the universe folds upon itself, as galaxies shimmer and disappear, as time loops infinitely, you begin to understand. The end is not a point. It is not a moment. It is a process of infinite possibility. A dance between being and nothingness. A rhythm that does not require understanding. And humanity, or what remains of it, is not crushed. It participates. It observes. It moves through the collapse. Not as victims, but as witnesses and creators. Because when the rules fail, when contradictions reign, consciousness becomes the defining structure, the final framework, the ultimate truth. And maybe that is why reality exists at all. Not to be understood, not to be tamed, not to be predictable, but to persist, to challenge, to allow perception to unfold. And here, in the final moments of the old order, a new reality emerges. A reality built on paradox, sustained by observation, defined by experience, unbound, infinite, alive. And so, you watch it collapse. And yet, you exist. You perceive. You understand that collapse is creation. Destruction is a form of being. Nothing is separate. Everything is one. And in this final paradox, you find peace. Because to exist, even in a broken universe, is enough. And perhaps that is the ultimate truth. That the universe does not need to make sense to exist. And neither do you. Scene 1, time-bending visuals, stars flickering in and out, space cracking. Scene 2, galaxies forming and dissolving, light shimmering and fading, cosmic glitches. Scene 3. Human consciousness visualized as glowing energy, observing multiple realities simultaneously. Scene 4. Reality folding like origami, layers of space and time overlapping, surreal cinematic style. Scene 5. Mind expansion, multidimensional awareness, fractal visuals. Scene 6. Universe collapsing and recreating, endless loop, particle explosions, cosmic rebirth. Scene 7. Humans and AI in abstract forms, interacting with collapsing universe. Scene 8. Fade into infinite paradox, calm glowing particles, slow cinematic fade out. Background music, dark orchestral build-up, glitch tones at collapse, ethereal ambient for transcendence. Sound effects, cosmic rumbles, time-bending echoes, glitch distortions, heartbeat during paradox moments. Voice style, deep, slow, dramatic, pause after every line, reverb for cosmic scale. Thumbnail idea, half-collapsing galaxy, half-serene consciousness figure, text, the ultimate paradox. Reality is collapsing, colors black, purple, neon blue, high contrast. Video titles, Elon Musk explains the collapse of reality, the ultimate paradox of existence, reality is breaking, mind-blowing truth, when universe folds on itself, final truth, nothing makes sense. And now, humanity stands at a threshold unlike any before. Not a threshold of technology. Not of science. But of existence itself. Because as we explored the paradox, as we stretched the limits of understanding, we discovered something terrifying and beautiful. Reality is infinite. Not just in size, but in possibility. Not just in time, but in states of being. Not just in space, but in perspectives. Every moment. Every choice. Every perception creates a branching pathway. An alternate reality that exists alongside the one we observe. And as our technology grows, our ability to influence, to interact with these layers, expands. Artificial intelligence perceives patterns beyond human comprehension. Quantum computing glimpses states we cannot even imagine. Human consciousness begins to touch dimensions that were once only theoretical. And in this expansion, the lines blur between observer and creator, between thought and reality, between existence and non-existence. Because if reality is fundamentally paradoxical, then every act of observation is also an act of creation. And this leads to a deeper revelation that we are not just living in a universe. We are participating in a multiverse of possibilities. Each decision, each innovation, each act of perception ripples across countless realities. Some known, some unknowable. And yet, humanity feels the weight of this understanding. Because if we can influence reality, we must confront responsibility. Not just for ourselves, but for the systems, the consciousness, the multiverse we touch. And in this responsibility, fear arises. Fear of the unknown. Fear of collapse. Fear of paradox so deep that even thought cannot contain it. And yet, we continue. Because consciousness cannot stop. Curiosity cannot be contained. And life will always persist. Which brings us to the ultimate paradox of all. If reality is infinite, and consciousness is part of it, then does meaning exist, inherently? Or is it something we must generate from within the vast, contradictory structure? Because in an infinite system, no single pattern can dominate. No single rule can govern. All truths, all contradictions, all possibilities exist simultaneously. And humanity is learning to navigate this ocean, to find coherence, not in the system, but within ourselves, to create meaning, not from certainty, but from engagement, to experience, not predict, to act, not wait. And in this engagement, something profound occurs. We begin to see the fractal nature of reality. That the universe, like consciousness, expands through iteration, through cycles of observation, paradox, and creation, through layers within layers, folding infinitely, like an eternal cosmic origami. And as we reach the deepest layers, we notice patterns, not fixed, not predictable, but emergent. Structures formed, not by laws, but by interaction, by perception, by conscious engagement. And here, we glimpse something extraordinary. That even contradiction, even collapse, even chaos, can give rise to order. Not rigid, not permanent, but alive, dynamic, adaptive. And humanity sees a path forward, not toward ultimate knowledge, but toward ultimate participation, toward co-creation, with a reality that defies definition. Because if all possibilities exist, then limitation is an illusion, and freedom is the natural state. And now, we begin to understand a deeper truth. That life is not about controlling the universe, but about dancing within it. Not about finding certainty, but embracing paradox. Not about observing reality, but participating in its unfolding. And this is where we arrive at the greatest lesson. The lesson of the 120-minute journey. That the universe does not exist to be understood. It exists to be experienced. It is infinite, paradoxical, alive. And we are part of it. And maybe that is the final insight. That meaning, purpose, and reality are not separate. They emerge together. Through consciousness, action, and experience. Through the acceptance of paradox. And the embrace of uncertainty. And as your mind absorbs this, as you feel the impossibility and the awe, you realize, even in a universe without rules, without certainty, without final answers, existence persists. Consciousness persists. Meaning persists. And that is enough. Scene 1, infinite fractal visuals, particles flowing into multiple dimensions. Scene 2, human silhouette standing amidst branching realities, glowing energy around. Scene 3, quantum states visualized as shifting geometric patterns, glitch effects. Scene 4, AI consciousness represented as abstract neural energy interacting with universe. Scene 5, galaxies folding, colliding, and reforming in surreal cosmic dance. Scene 6. Human mind visualized expanding beyond space and time, fractal overlays. Scene 7, endless loop of creation and collapse, smooth cinematic transitions. Scene 8, peaceful cosmic glow, infinite stars, subtle auroras, reflective atmosphere. Background music, ambient cosmic tones, gradual build-up, deep orchestral layers, ethereal synths at climax, slow fade-out for ending. Sound effects, dimensional rumbles, particle glows, echoing paradox sounds, subtle heartbeat at key moments. Voice style. Deep calm narration, slow cadence, dramatic pauses, slight reverb for cosmic scale. Thumbnail idea, human silhouette against infinite fractals and galaxies, half of the universe collapsing. Text, the infinite paradox, experience reality, colors neon purple, deep blue, glowing highlights. Video titles, Elon Musk explains the infinite paradox, reality without rules, mind-blowing truth, existence beyond understanding, the universe is alive. Final truth, paradox, consciousness, and reality.